Joining us right now is Hans von I don't know why I have a tongue twister on this name. Hans von Spakovsky. Hans von. Can I just call you Hans von?
You can if you want.
From National Review. Of course, he is the co-author, along with John Fund, excuse me, of... for goodness sake, please help me with the name of the book, because I don't have it right in front of me.
Who's counting?
Who's counting, exactly. Well, you and Fund are so good on this whole voter fraud thing and the ridiculousness of our voter laws and whether they're even being enforced. And you've got to have a pretty strong opinion on yesterday's surprising, to me it was surprising, Supreme Court decision, at least the way it came down. It was a 7-2 vote, with Antonin Scalia, of all people, writing the majority finding. The only two dissenting votes were Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito. Samuel Alito. And am I correct in succinctly saying that the decision basically said that the state of Arizona had no right to force proof of citizenship upon registering to vote because states can't trump federal registration law? Is that basically what happened yesterday?
That is basically what happened, although it's not. I think the decision was wrong, but it wasn't quite as dire as people on the left who think this is a great victory are making it out to be. Yeah,
and actually you and J. Christian Adams, who also worked with you, I think, at the Department of Justice in the same division, I think you both had this perspective, which was, in the long run, this might actually end up being a good thing with regard to conservatives. Explain that to me.
Well, the left wanted the court to completely wipe out the ability of states to ask for proof of citizenship. The court didn't do that. In fact, what Judge Scalia said was this only applies to the federal voter registration form. Lots of states, including Arizona, also have their own state form, and in fact, he said this doesn't apply to the state form. So anybody using the state form in Arizona registered to vote, the state can still ask for proof of citizenship. The other thing the judge laid out at the end of his opinion, he put in a roadmap for how the court, how Arizona could even get it okay when they're using the federal form. He said, look, they can ask the federal agency, that's the EAC, Election Assistance Commission, for permission to add this state-specific instruction to the federal form. And if the EAC says no, they can sue them. And they even suggested that if the state agency says no, that would be an arbitrary decision because, in fact, the EAC already said yes to Louisiana adding a state-specific instruction to the federal form.
So, Hans, this is Mike. So this really isn't a lose proposition for us. It gives the states a chance to beef up their own registration requirements. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Now, what will happen is a lot of these groups that are against this are going to push in their voter registration drives to only use the federal form. But even there, like I said, Arizona can now apply to the EAC. If the EAC says no, they sue them in court. And I think in the long run, they'll win the court battle.
And of course, I mean, because of the motor voter bill, so many people are registering to vote at the DMV when they deal with their driver's license. Can the state of Arizona now tell all of those DMV offices, all right, just use the state form, keep those federal forms in the back office there, we don't need to use those?
Yes, and they have to have the federal form available if somebody specifically asks for it. But most people aren't going to know this, and the DMV folks can, if somebody says, yeah, I want to register, they hand them the state form.
Let me ask you about this federal law that trumped the state law yesterday. It's the 1993 National Voting Rights Act. And my understanding of the National Voting Rights Act that now prevailed with regard to federal registration here is that basically somebody, when they quote-unquote prove their citizenship upon registering to vote, all they have to do is just sign a statement saying, yep, I'm a citizen. Is that really the beginning and end of it?
That is on the federal form, and we know that doesn't work because, as John Fund and I documented, there's cases all over the country of people who aren't U.S. citizens who registered and voted. And, in fact, Arizona, in this case, down in the lower courts, they brought forth evidence that people in Arizona who weren't U.S. citizens had registered and voted in their elections. In fact, there had been prosecutions of folks for doing that.
All right, so Hans von Spakovsky is our guest, by the way, and he writes with National Review. He's also a senior legal fellow and manager for Civil Justice Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation. You got a congressman sitting right here, Hans, and I'm guessing that I could be going out on a limb here, but I'm thinking that Congress could actually beef up that 1993 National Voting Rights Act and actually make it a little bit more stringent in terms of proving citizenship. Congressman, is that even a possibility?
I think anything's possible, but on Hans, on this, let me just be clear on this, because what I see, the biggest gap that I see right now, and I don't mean in any way to be disrespectful to anybody, is our citizens don't understand the options that they have, and the fact that they're the ones that structure this government. There's a lack of knowledge or a lack of understanding, and it's what you don't know that'll kill you. A lot of these things that we see happening today, and I go back home on the weekends, I'm back in Western Pennsylvania, and folks ask me questions all the time about, well, what are you guys going to do next, or what else can you do? In this case, and I think it's almost like the Roberts decision, the Supreme Court saying, look, it falls, it's constitutional. We can't prevent you from electing people that come out with bad legislation. But in this day and age, with the ability we have to do the background, to be able to actually put things into effect with the technology that we have and the IDs that are required. My goodness, I can't go in any federal building. If I'm in Pittsburgh, I need to have a photo ID almost to go anywhere. Getting on an airplane, everybody understands that. But
right.
Why is it that everything else we do in life requires a photo ID, and yet one of the most important parts of what this government runs on is on suffrage? It goes way back to the very beginning. The ability for us to vote as citizens. I would just think that it would be common sense that there has to be a little bit more than me saying, yeah, I'm a citizen and I'm here to vote.
Oh, no, look, you're absolutely right. But that's another thing. Look, the media, with their friends on the left, have been misinterpreting their opinion. I've seen people saying, oh, this throws into question voter ID laws. That's actually wrong. The referendum that was passed by Arizona voters back in 2004 actually had two parts. It had a voter ID law, so you have to show ID when you show up to vote, and it had this proof of citizenship. The ID part, that wasn't before the Supreme Court. They did originally sue about it, but they lost in the lower courts. They didn't bother to appeal it because, as you know, the U.S. Supreme Court has said voter ID is constitutional. So that's not an issue. This was just a statutory case. The Constitution was involved, and I think the court misinterpreted the NVRA, the motor voter law, to say that Arizona can't do this. But that's actually something that Congress could fix by just saying the NVRA does not prevent states from asking for proof of citizenship.
All right. Hans von Spakovsky, he is a senior legal fellow and manager of Civil Justice Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation, also the author of Who's Counting, along with John Fund, their expert on voter fraud and all of these voter laws. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Happy to